Okay, so I've been trying to record this video over and over and over again, and each time I do, I either stutter or I realize that I'm saying something wrong, and then I suddenly realize that this video's gotten a little bit hard to make because the Raspberry Pi Pico, this device I want to make the video about, there are basically three main revisions of it. This one I'm holding right now, this is the 2020 model of it. This is what I and some people would believe is the original. This is the one that used to be the mainline one that everyone uses and has and whatever, right? And its main feature is the fact that its main defining, aesthetic aspect that you can see off of it is the raspberry symbol is right there. The symbol is right there in the middle, on the bottom middle. But then, as I'm looking on my screen here, over on DigiKey, and also on the documentation that I was trying to quote as I'm recording this video, trying to make it informational, I see that there's a Raspberry Pi Pico H, which I'm wondering what's that? And that seems to be a refresh of the original Raspberry Pi Pico dev board. And I can't really find much on what's different between this one and the H model. I know the main difference between this one, the original one, and the new W model is the new W model has Wi-Fi. And I find that amazing because for IoT devices, having Wi-Fi on the Raspberry Pi Pico is a game changer. Instead of having to add on a Wi-Fi module that you access externally, you're able to just have the Pico talk to the Wi-Fi module built on, send and receive commands wirelessly, and you can set it up for any number of IoT sensors, doorbells, whatever you want. But overall, this video right here is about the Raspberry Pi Pico. And hopefully this video will also be able to be for the Pico H, I guess? I don't know, but I wanted to create this little preface to the video, this little, before bit where I say that I have the Raspberry Pi Pico right here in my hand. It's my favorite microcontroller. I enjoy playing with it for multiple reasons. And then I go on, and then I realize there's an H model now. But as far as I can tell, both the Raspberry Pi Pico and the Raspberry Pi Pico H both have the dual-core ARM Cortex M0 Plus RP2040 chip, which, as far as I can tell, they both have that. They both have 264 kilobytes of onboard SRAM. They both have 2 megabytes of onboard flash, which that's not a lot of RAM. It's not a lot of RAM, but it's a microcontroller. You're not using it like a regular computer. You are using it to just send and receive signals through its 26 multifunctional GPIO pins and its 3 analog inputs. You're just sending and receiving signals through those, which that is amazing. And then from there, the Raspberry Pi Pico, and I believe the H model and the W model, all are the same in this aspect. They all have 2 UART, 2 SPI, and 2 I2C controllers. They all have, and those controllers are spread across all 26 multifunctional GPIO pins. I'll throw up a graph on the screen showing the pin outs and everything. And it also has 16 PWM channels, so you can have, a lot of stuff like motors attached too. As long as you have enough power to run the motors and the, anything that needs power management. It's got 8 programmable I/O state machines that you can use for peripherals. It supports 1.8 to 5.5 volt direct current input through the USB port. Or, if you're feeling funky and fun, you could even add it to the V-Bus as a battery. Me personally, I love the Raspberry Pi Pico and the RP2040 because of how versatile it is. You can use it with multiple, with different programming languages from C, C++, Python, MicroPython, CircuitPython, and a lot of variants on those languages. And for the most part, it's really easy to use it. The Raspberry Pi group, they have a really nice book for using and getting into the Raspberry Pi Pico with MicroPython, and I have that book. Give me 1 second so I can grab it. When I first bought the Raspberry Pi Pico, I bought it with this book, Getting Started with MicroPython on the Raspberry Pi Pico. And personally, I think this book is a really good starting point, especially if you want to just learn how to program for devices, and set up very basic circuits. This is an amazing book. The Raspberry Pi group, they have this book being sold on their website. You can get it from Adafruit. I believe I got my copy on Amazon for about $4, which is really cheap, but nowadays you might get it for a bit more. So the Raspberry Pi Pico is compatible with a lot of input type of devices, from analog devices like, little switches, buttons, and potentiometers, these little knob dudes, to more complex sensory input devices like light sensors and Adafruits. I believe this is an accelerometer and magnometer. And these are all input devices. These will send a signal to the Pico, and from there you can read those signals, output that data to multiple different output devices. For example, I have some right here. I've got this little display, this little 7-8 segment display, servos, displays, which you can output data from the Pico to displays like this one. And the Pico can handle all of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if it could handle all of these at once. I'm not going to test it right now. This video is just an introduction to this little dude, the Raspberry Pi Pico. And this has been going on a bit rambly, but still, the Raspberry Pi Pico is an amazing device. It's got, and I'm going to say this again, it has the RP2040, a dual-core ARM Cortex M0 Plus processor that runs about 133 megahertz, 264 kilobytes of onboard SRAM, 2 megabytes of flash. It's got 26 multifunctional GPIO pins, 3 analog pins, 2 UART, 2 SPI, and 2 I2C channels that are spread across the 26 multifunctional pins, 16 PWM channels that are spread across the pins, and it's got a USB input that can also be used as an output if you want to turn this into a keyboard, and that is amazing. The Raspberry Pi group has created an amazing device. The one in front of me, I believe, is the original revision of it, the original Raspberry Pi Pico. There's a Raspberry Pi Pico H out now, which I believe is just a revision on the original one. And now there's the Raspberry Pi Pico W, which I plan to make a video on in the future. So yeah, I wanted to make this as a really quick video showing off the Raspberry Pi Pico, this cute little device, one of the ones that I still have a lot of fun playing with. And I plan to make more videos using this in the future, and more videos just talking about other microcontrollers I own, and hopefully, in a more structured format. I just wanted to get this, done because I've been beating around the bush, I've been procrastinating, I've been having a hard time actually figuring out what I want to say in what order I want to say it for this video. I'd like to thank all my patrons, everyone who's helped me, get to the point where I am, even if you just supported me, cheered me on Twitter. You guys are awesome. All of your support is amazing, and I enjoy making content like this. I enjoy showing off devices like this, and I want to make more content like this in the future. So, let's see what I create in the next couple of weeks. Because I've got stuff planned. I've got stuff planned with the Raspberry Pi Pico, showing how you would hook up with an accelerometer, or how to use potentiometers, or even, and I didn't even mention this in this video, or even use it with integrated circuits. Because right here, and I was supposed to get a package of more of them yesterday, but Amazon messed up. I've got MCP 3008s, MCP 2308s, and 74HC595s right here. And I want to show how you can add even more channels to this already multi-channel device. So yeah, if you like my content, follow me here on YouTube, subscribe to me on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, support me on Patreon if you want to help me buy more devices like this. Just $1 a month would be amazing. And yeah, I hope you all have a good day. Continue tinkering, continue creating amazing stuff. Hopefully one day I can get back into 3D modeling. I can integrate devices into 3D printing. And we'll see what I come up with in the next couple of weeks to months.